to sit in front.
Sure.
Thank you. Please help me.
Give me a minute.
What?
Give me a minute. I'll be back.
Oh, no, yeah. I called you early. It's okay. Hi, I'm Teeny.
I'm Jackson from India.
Hi, yeah, Gladson. Gladson, I love that.
Nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you. So, let's see. I don't know. We'll see.
I'm looking forward to your session.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's the first time in Iraq and I'm just getting to
Me too. It's my first time as well.
Yeah. So we work in the area of bonded labor
Okay.
in India.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So, and do you provide direct services or do you do?
So we predominantly work on rescue rehabilitation,
Okay.
reintegration. Because bonded labor in India is more like a family unit, taken into labor as a family.
Yes. It's
So-
intergenerational, right?
Yeah, generational. So excuse me.
Sorry.
Could you help us set this up?
Oh, Mom, what? And you want to do it as a circle? How
No. It was joined by some other team.
Oh.
So I've asked them to split it.
Okay.
So it will be easy for others. So it is generational time, and also there is a new.
Yeah.
Please.
No. It's okay. Yeah.
Please be comfortable.
It's okay.
Okay. So we've been in the sector for 7 years, and being registered 4 years, being registered under government. So we work along with government, the local body, to support the sector.
So you get government grants?
Not grants. We work with government department.
Okay, but you get funding from it.
No. We get funding from individual donors.
Okay. So you do crowdfunding?
Yeah, we do.
Hi. Hi. Yeah.
That's how we have to operate. And the main issue is that for even one rescue, we need 6 departments, 6 government departments to be with us to do a rescue.
Will they do they reject survivors or no? Or rescues? Do they reject rescues?
They take time to do it.
Oh, so do you have to go in with us?
No, we can't go in
Oh, without the
government.
government.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Because the law is rigid in India, where there's no special laws for trafficking.
We don't have laws in India.
Law for trafficking is labor. Modern labor, even the government cannot whether it's modern labor or not. Doesn't have.
So how much investments do you put in advocacy and how much do you do in direct services? And rescues?
30% of expenses goes in administration,
Yeah.
and rest goes to our projects.
And you just depend on crowdfunding? It's enough?
Yeah, the thing is that like we have only it's a volunteer-based organization.
How do you function like that? That your volunteer groups is it's sustainable?
Yeah.
What do? You
So
have
I
a proper management?
I work in an IT company. I have a full-time job.
Yeah.
I work as an IT consultant in India, and I just Saturdays and Sunday I just work with them because I'm the founding member of this organization.
Jeez.
Yeah, some other with my friend, and we have a solid set of like-minded people who are supporting this cause.
So see, you don't really need money.
So,
You prove my point. You don't always need money.
yeah.
That you can. This is what you have.
Yes. It's true.
That's
True,
exactly.
because I'm taking care of my own needs from my work.
Yeah.
So the partially.
That's why you don't need this so much. Yes, you
we
need.
need it, but we are able to manage it.
Yeah.
We are able to manage it, and it's sustainable. But when we need to expand it,
You
we
can
are-
have a
yes. Yeah. Well, like 4 years, we haven't had any problem. We've been doing multiple projects.
Yeah.
Yes. We are looking at scaling it up.
Yeah. So we can talk about it.
Because we locally work with local colleges, institutions who are doing social work.
So they can be in your pool of donors or volunteers.
They will be rather volunteers.
Yes, exactly. So you should pass on knowledge and expertise.
So looking forward to listening more from you.
Con là nghèo, con nhà vệ sinh. Như thế nào? Cứ là miền Bắc từ như từ một miền sở học ra đây vậy. Cái là bạn ấy cũng có Instagram. Mà nè, mấy cái mà có thể đọc tới người bụng. Sự chỉ con chịu đừng xong mình ở mong phải đi mình được
bây giờ bao nhiêu mà nó đang cả
cha mẹ được pro
về màu ấy bà chú nào tới chú con rồi cùng muốn bao nhiêu mà cảm tới bên
ôi tham ông bị khẽ xí nhỉ
có thể
thì
cái dân tới nữa cái dân tới mình dân bốc kho được rồi.
Hello, are you leading a session?
Okay, I'm your timekeeper.
Hello, great. Can you be my timekeeper? Oh, would you like
it's always when you want to reach just bring back
Will you tell me if it's like 15 minutes?
Yeah, they gave us cards for 10, 55, but if you want 15, I'll be glad to do that. I can do that.
Thank you so much.
Let me get my purse there.
Yeah.
I don't know, you have to double my fee if I push
Okay.
slides.
Can I get you another cup of coffee?
Oh, I
And
wish.
I don't know. I'll find something.
Ah!
Thank you.
Well, I was thinking 0 times 2 is affordable.
Thank you.
And are you called Artini?
I'm Teeny.
Huh?
I'm Teeny.
Teeny. Okay, go with
Yeah.
Teeny. Okay.
Yeah.
Starting with the basics here. I'm Debbie. Nice to
Hi,
meet
Debbie.
you. I
Thank
know
you so
we've
much.
passed each other
I
several
know.
times, but
I know.
you have a lot of names to remember, and so I didn't think.
Well, that and the fact that I have I have like, I don't know, I panic and then I don't remember anybody's names.
Oh.
But I will remember yours, Debbie. Thank you so much. Yeah, just call me Teeny. Zainuddin. Yeah. Hey. I'm telling you, Sophie just spoiled the whole thing for me. I was like, okay, I'm throwing my presentation out now. Oh, she was amazing.
very good. When we plan,
Should we give it like 5 more minutes?
I think so.
I don't know how much content you have, but
I have too much content, so I'm just gonna breeze through because you're all getting the slides anyway. So
Yeah. I know. We need support.
yeah, I know there's too much content. There's too many slides.
2 minutes.
So I'll just
36 slides, and she has 45 minutes. So,
no, so what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna skip. I'll just I know. I just kind of went overboard. Helen just said like you've got too much.
Well, you have an hour. You have an hour.
I'm not. I'm just gonna. I'm gonna go through it and like. Let's see. Yeah, do this. No, I'm not. I'm gonna skip some.
Just give us the good bits.
Okay. Okay, I'll give you the good bits. Yeah. My problem is always I don't know how to do PowerPoint slides. That's number one. I always try to. And then I say to them, just throw everything in there. Just throw everything in there. So we'll start in like 3 minutes. Is that good? Yes. Because I know we have to finish on time.
Or I'll get in trouble.
Shall we make it 1 more minute and then we'll just start? So yeah. Okay, so hi everyone. This is the session on fundraising and resource mobilization. The title is actually how grassroots organizations can identify and secure resources, partners and donors to tackle transnational trafficking in Southeast Asia. And it's a approach, an approach. Well, that's wrong grammar. Anyway, so when we talk about fundraising and resource mobilization, we're really talking about 3 things. One is actual money, one is in kind, and the human resource, right? So it includes volunteer management, it includes experts that you bring in to help you build and structure your organization and the needs and whatever the programs and projects are that needs to get strengthened. But again, going back to addressing the issue on trafficking, and how to get donor support, there are things that we need to look at. One is obviously, as we said, the resource mobilization and fundraising structure. Do you have a plan to raise money? I know that in much of the work that we do is grassroots organization. I come from one as well. We tend to now come up with maybe 1 year, 3 year, 5 year plan. But the truth of the matter is we need much more than that. The pool of resources is shrinking, and we have to think of innovative and creative ways to be able to One, secure the funding. Two, retain the funding. Three, keep the interest and build, right? So these are things that have changed over the years, and so we need to look at different ways of being able to do that. So yes, one is, the need for funding. How are we going? What are the kind of programs that we want to look at when we talk about anti-trafficking? Is it intervention? Is it protection? Is it investigation? Is it aftercare? Is it reintegration? What are the things that we're looking at? And then how are we going to get to the programs and to allow the donors to be able to support what we're doing, right? Do we need capacity building as well as we look for funding? Do we need to do research and data collection, because everybody's talking about empirical research and data? What are the kinds of resources that we have as an organization? The structure. So these are some of the things that we need to look at. And also to gain and retain donor support, we also need to look at the kind of financial assistance that we need, the kind of technical expertise that we need as a volunteer. So in my organization in Malaysia, one of the areas that we're very, very weak in is finance. Looking at our finance department. We're not very good because there's so many programs that we're doing. We have 31 staff. We serve about 2,000 children a year. We only have 6 social workers. We have 2 shelters. We have an education. We have 2 schools. And we have daycare centers. And it's a lot. So we're not very good at budgeting. I mean, not budgeting, but we're not very good at finance and keeping the different accounts separate. And because we have tax exemption, we get renewed by the tax department every 5 years. So, we need work on that. So what we've done, for example, is obviously we can't hire someone to work with us full time who can sit down and go through the books with us. So what we do is we get banks and bookkeepers and stuff to work together to come up with a plan to help us look at a mid-term and long-term strategy on how to keep our books separate and clean. So that we also don't run into trouble every 5 years when the tax people come around. We get audited 3 times a year. But again, it's still not enough. There are things we need to do, programs come into play. There are always emergencies. We're always doing rescues. We have to put children in shelters for a while. There's all sorts of costs that we cover. We work in detention as well. So loads of things come into play. So, emergency funds aside, we just don't have enough, and we're always scrambling. So again, how do you account for that? That's for us as a grassroots organization. But again, looking at it pragmatically, we need to decide what it is and where our priorities are. Sustainability is a buzzword. Sustainability is huge for grassroots organizations. I think the idea, I can't remember who the speaker was yesterday who was talking about soul versus scalability. Is that an issue? For us it is, because we want to stay true to what our principles are, which is protecting the child and upholding their rights and keeping the dignity of the child and the family. Sophie yesterday was talking about donor-driven agendas, and it really struck a note with me because my day job is as a fundraising and resource mobilization person. My love is child protection and child rights, and they're not always in sync. So, I struggle, and this is a personal story. I struggle with always asking for money just because we need the programs running and we have to pay the bills, and we have to pay the staff, we have to pay for utilities, and sometimes what the donor wants isn't what we need, or telling us to cut the number of spaces for children because we can't take that many, or it's just not economical. It just doesn't make sense. So somehow, and this is where the accounting and finance comes into play, the problems that we have, is I'll just scramble and get people to pay for it, and then we have to go back to the books and write it down, but it's not always clear, right? So I struggle with that, or with the whole idea of scale and soul, and how much of the work that we do is donor driven, or should we care, should we not? My problem is, like I said, I think it's time to say no to donors too, which means we're going to be in trouble because we're going to reject funding. And that means having to build more of in-kind and human resource capacities and building the partnerships and stuff because we're not going to have that much money. Next. Again, to identify and secure resources, what else do we need to look at? We need to look at, and strategy is where what comes into play. Strategic, I think reassessments need to be done every 6 months or so. That's just my rule of thumb. We need to do needs assessments and research on the work that we're doing. Are we in sync? Are we relevant? Maybe things have changed. Maybe we've come up with new partners. Maybe we're wrong. But we need to be able to review and reassess with that and be honest with our donors. This is what we now want. This is what we need. We need to look at strategic networking and partnerships. I cannot say this enough. A lot of us grassroots organizations, we tend to talk to donors, ask for money, and then never talk to them again until the next year. We say we want 3 to 5 year funding, but we talk to the donor once a year, and that's it. I have worked with UN organizations on fundraising and philanthropy. Let me tell you, the biggest mistakes we make as grassroots organizations is the fact that we don't have stewardship programs, and we don't have retention programs, and we don't know how to keep and retain relationships with donors. I think it's very important, and I said this, I actually had a meeting here last night with a potential client who wants to hire me as a fundraising consultant in the region. And one of the things when I spoke to them, I realized very quickly they all want money, but they have no idea how to maintain and keep those relationships. There's no stewardship program, there's no retention program. Are you planning, and I ask you this very honestly, are you all planning to keep your donors for the next year? If you are, please make sure, very simple things which I will go into detail later. You do your email updates every month, you do your 3-month reports, you do your 6-month reports, you do your 1-year reports, you invite them to come see your programs. If they're in the area, you invite them. That's a reward, right? UNICEF does it very well. UNICEF is huge. UNICEF is a machinery that does fundraising and resource mobilization very, very well, too well. But they do it, they give gifts, they give stickers, they give stuff, but on-site visits is a great way of doing, or inviting them to come, bring their whole corporation to do volunteer work, right? That's the easiest, and that's the best way to maintain a relationship. Everybody knows this, right? But what else can you do? Videos, Instagram, social media. These are ways in which you retain your donors and you keep your partnerships and you update them on what is happening. Another area, like I said, I'll go into details. Another thing you can do is also to ensure that the communities you serve give feedback. And you can use that to talk about referrals, documentation, affirmations, success stories, disappointments, whatever it is. Those lived experiences, those feedback from the communities is another way to do documentation and reporting. Next. Capacity building and training is very important. Investing in your staff, their welfare, etc. is very important. That all takes money. That's also part of fundraising. That's also part of resource mobilization. And that's also part of care, right? Monitoring and evaluation. Another area we're terrible at. Most of us, terrible. How I do monitoring reporting is that 1 year, 1 week, or 1 month newsletter, maybe 6-month reports, and maybe if you're lucky, 1 year reports. You don't know how to say thank you. You take people from money, you don't know how to say thank you. Most of us don't. We don't know how to say thank you, please, and come back. That's a great way of making sure you maintain that relationship. But monitoring and evaluation is a lot more. It's about internal monitoring and reporting. It's about reflection. It's about what could you do better? And then maybe communicating that with your donors. I think honesty is always the best policy. If you tell the donors what you want and what you need, most of the times, some of the times, they listen And those are the donors that you're going to keep for a long, long time. And sometimes if you say, this is what we need to do, and this is what we've done wrong, and this is what we want to change, people will list, donors will list the good ones anyway. But evaluation internally, evaluation externally, most grassroots organizations I know, although it is changing over the years, don't like to get people from the outside to validate what they're doing internally. They don't want to share. If you're doing work with children, for example, like we do, we have a social workers team that looks at what we do, case managers, what they, but also evaluation and assessment of how we're doing as an organization, and an external team that has nothing to do with our staff, but who are trained social workers and people who've worked in the past, whether they're retired social workers, etc., to come in and evaluate what we do. Sometimes we pay, most of the times we don't, because it's about enriching the body of knowledge that is already there, ensuring that it's for the betterment and the rights and protection of children, and that this knowledge will be shared, right? So again, if you want to look at potential partners, one of the non-traditional stakeholders and partners that we should be looking at is maybe not donor, but human resource academia. We were talking about media. We're talking about partnerships with media, we're talking about partnerships with magazines, we're talking about partnerships with schools. These are usual donor partners that we don't usually think about when we talk about grassroots work. But let me tell you, they're your best allies if you want to spread the word. They're your best recommendations for referral systems, and they're non-traditional. Next. So again, identifying and engaging who the stakeholders are. We usually go corporate, major donors, we have all these different things, right? International organizations, other civil societies and local NGOs. These are all your traditional partners, your government and law enforcement agencies. But there are lots of ways to be able to ensure that these partnerships are retained and thrive. So a lot of the work that we do, which I will show you, next slide please. Private sector, these are all traditional. Academic, media, next. Okay, next. Okay, never mind. I'll show you in a bit, I'll come back to it. So, okay, government funding. That's great if you get along with the government. That's great if you partner with the government. We, for example, in Yes, I'm talking, we partner with the social department, social welfare department in Kuala Lumpur. Nice. But they don't give us money. But what they give us is the prestige and the nod that we work with the government, even if they don't give us money. In fact, we actually pay for everything. But what they do is they give us access and that nod and that referral to say, you know what, we're legit. We've been around, right? No, it's okay. Next. Local government grants are accessible if you work with a local partner. But local government grants may or may not happen. Sometimes they take 3 months, sometimes they take 6 months, and sometimes they say it's going to happen and it never happens, for whatever reason. In Malaysia, for example, we've had 3 government changes in a year and a half. So the promises that were approved never came to fruition because we changed government so many times. So we had to think of different ways to get funding and partnerships. But these are some of the ways in which you can do it. I'm really whizzing through this. If you have any questions, we can talk about it. Next. International multilateral funding. So a lot of the partners that we work with is through training and capacity building, and sort of an introduction and a partnership where, again, it's a nod more than we actually getting money per se. It's more the resource mobilization work. So we work with UNODC on training frontliners, on identifying victims of trafficking. So we work with them, but what's nice about it is there's a referral system. If you're if you're partnering with a UN agency, chances are you get to partner with other UN agencies as well. So we work with UNICEF, UNHCR, UNODC, we work with UNFPA. So yes, most of the time it's referrals and the not. Sometimes it develops into funding. But again, if you're looking for funding with international organizations, it's a pain in the butt. But align your projects with priorities, which areas you want to look at, develop comprehensive applications, including your needs assessment, project planning, networking, your proposal submission, and maintaining the relationships. And I say this over and over again, that stewardship and retention of donors is the most important thing. I'm going to just stop 1 second. One of the things that I do, which I think would be most helpful to grassroots communities like us, is your donor list. So I have, over the years, and I've done this work for 42 years, and this is my rule of thumb, always have a list of all your donors from the beginning to the end. It started with a piece of white paper that I keep. Now it's obviously in an Excel spreadsheet. I have by sector, I have it by issue. So, for example, these are the top 50 corporations that work in education. Almost all corporations in Malaysia, for example, work in education. How does that education sector intersect with trafficking? Guess what? When you have survivors in shelters and aftercare, and when they come out and they need reintegration, they need education and working with children. That is one of the ways in which we say, look, this is what you can do. It's new, it's innovative, hasn't been done. They're doing it in other countries too. You want best practices? I have best practices. I'm not coming out with something new. Other countries are doing it. Vocational training, reintegration back into society, all of that is education, right? This is what you can fund. If you want to talk about health, these are the things that we need to look at. Mental health, especially after the pandemic, looking at ways in which you do trauma-informed work, looking at work in which you can, whatever, right? And those are the things that you can tell donors, this is what you can do. If you wanted to work on advocacy, for example, our Child Witness Act, in Malaysia is very weak. We're looking at amendments, looking at advocacies, being able to get onto the task force with the government, to be able to change laws. This costs money. We need activists, we need advocates, we need roundtable discussions, we need all these different things. Will you fund us? So I have that list of corporate donors, I have that list of major donors and philanthropists who want to give. And let me tell you, in Southeast Asia, philanthropy is a big thing in Singapore, philanthropy is a big thing in Indonesia, philanthropy is a big thing in Thailand, philanthropy is not a big thing in Malaysia. So what happens? In a lot of the work that we do, we will tend to work with philanthropists who are not in Malaysia. We work with philanthropists in Singapore. Because you know what? They want to fund the programs and they understand what it's about. It's too much time and the work it's urgent that we get work done now. So I will fly to Singapore and meet philanthropists and say, do you want to work on this issue? And they will say yes. We want to look at alternative shelters, we want to look at alternative case management procedures, we want to look at halfway homes, we want to look at, so those are the kind of people that we work with. So major donor philanthropists list is there. Transnational organizations, transnational NGOs, international NGOs working on the issue, I have a list. Maybe they give money, maybe they don't, but they have also access to other donors who work on the same issue, might fund you too, if you partner with them. It isn't always about working by yourself in silos, which is very, very common amongst us grassroots organizations, but I think a lot more of the work that we do, because the resources are less, because there's so much to cover, and because really no one organization can do it all, collective collaboration and corroboration and networking is very important in transnational work. Next slide. Foreign government aid. We're not big in that in Malaysia. But in other countries, there is. So USAID, research aid programs, embassy, I can hear Sophie talking in my ear right now. But this is a pragmatic approach. You still need to look at, looking at foreign government aid in a lot of the cases now. but maybe sort of just also look at ways in which, if they're not going to fund it with money, look at ways in which they can give you in-kind or expertise, because that lots of times is much more priceless than money. Private fundraising foundations in Southeast Asia. That's good. Next slide. It's okay. This is good. Private foundations, which goes back to my meeting last night. So this big Swiss donor group, NGO, that does work here in the region, wants me to specifically look at getting them, opening the door for them with Singaporean philanthropists and private foundations. In Southeast Asia, most of the private foundations are family-owned. And if you're family-owned, that means you're possible philanthropists and very, very rich major donor families. And in foundations, when you're a family foundation, there are 3 ways of getting money from that foundation. One is through the principal, who is most probably one of the top 50 richest people in that country. One is through their foundation, which is because they give back. And one is through their organization, which is the staff. So there are different ways of being able to get money for the work that you do. The principal may say, no, I don't want to fund trafficking, but their staff might say yes. The principal may say, this is not what I'm interested in, but their foundation may say yes. So you need to be able to look and keep those lists of all the different foundations and track who does what, who may do what should you put at the back burner because that's not their interest for right now, and what you should come back for and what you should cross out because they're never going to do it, right? You should also then, the next slide, corporate funders and stuff and all, you should also then, I didn't put it here, come up with different funding models. And funding models isn't as complex as you think it is. Funding models are very simple. If you, person A, person B, person C, agree to or pledge to give 100,000 ringgit, 100,000 US dollars, and there's 5 or 10 of you, that's $1 million project for a year. Please, can you pledge for 3 years? That's a model. It's a social venture partnership. There's a name for it, but it's a model. So you can use that same model for corporations. You can use that same model for philanthropists. You can use that same model for foundations. You can use that same model for your community, right? So you can say, you know what? And you can use the same model for human resource in-kind. If you wanted a program but you didn't have the money, but you had 10 dedicated volunteers willing to work on 12 dedicated volunteers, willing to provide time for 1 month, once a week, you've got a program for a year. And if they pledge for 3 years, you've got a program for 3 years. But you, of course, have to come up with a module, whatever it is. But that's a model, right? Another model would be, if you fund this amount of money, I'll match, right? Everybody loves to do the matching. But it's not just for corporations. You can do it with individual donors too, right? With people in the community, with people in corporations, with high net worth individuals as well, the major donors. Next. CSR, we all know. Next. Cause-related marketing. Nobody likes that word marketing, but it's basically what we do, right? So working with Uniqlo, working with clothing that would be like Uniqlo. So identifying brands that will work with you. Maybe it's, lotion, body lotion, right? These are things that we know, but you should develop those campaigns to say, look, this is where the money goes. This is, if you give the money, this is where your donation goes. This is what we can do. So these are other ways to not only raise funds, but to raise awareness as well, right? And you can do it through Instagram. You can go talk to your regional TikTok company. So like Malaysia, for example, yeah, you know what, cold call. Just call them and say, you know what, we want to work with you on a CSR campaign for child protection. And they're pretty good at listening. You track sales and donations, you do an impact report, very simple impact report, right? This is what we did, this is how many kids we affected, this is what we did, examples of the modules. give that to the donor. Next. Public fundraising campaigns, you all know. Create a campaign, multimedia, events and fundraisers. Oh, it's hard, I hate this one. But if someone's going to do it for me, I'll take it. Right? And you should too. So, we have a big, fancy ball that happens once in 2 years. I don't have to do anything, but make sure that we get to be one of the beneficiaries. So things like that. Next. Membership programs and individual giving. We know all about crowdfunding and individual giving. Membership programs are like, I call it Netflix subscriptions. It's basically saying, if you give a certain amount of money per person, you get access to these kind of things, right? And it's obviously not people, but it's different kinds of things. Maybe you get, donors to come together to give you free membership. You get certain kinds of coupons. You do gamification with kids. But it also helps with your advocates, your young advocates, and it also helps with building a course and supporting your courses. There are loads of different things. All these things that I'm mentioning doesn't just serve one purpose, which is giving funding. It also raises the profile of your organization. It also raises the profile of your advocacy and the cause. Next. Major donors, I've already explained. I cannot tell you how important philanthropy and major donors are. We all know how to crowdfund. We all know how to do campaigns. We all know how to do all these things. But we never know how to approach major donors, which is your high net worth individuals, your corporate foundations, your corporate foundations and your people who honestly want to do something good, but don't know how. And if you don't try to reach out to them, then how are you going to change the way things are done in anti-trafficking? A lot of the major donors, I'll tell you this. So Thailand, Indonesia, Singapore are very good. We're starting to pick up in terms of looking at philanthropy. So, in Singapore you have AVPN, Asia Venture Partners Network, which is a whole bunch of high net worth individuals and major donors working together on different issues. Try to get people who are AVPN, who are members of AVPN to champion your cause. APC is another one in Singapore, Asia Philanthropic Circle. Same principles, different donors. The donors come from China, the donors come from Hong Kong, Indonesia, and Singapore. I talked about, can we go back?
Oh, of course.
No, sorry. I talked about stewardship and recognition. Most stewardship and recognition, most people who give don't want anything in return, but they would like that, thank you. And that stewardship and retention program is good for you. Next. And income in social enterprises, you saw that downstairs, you all do it. You have to do more of it. Fee for service is training. I think, we talk about the fact that we as grassroots organizations have to flip the power struggle and the power thing. We are the experts, not the corporates, not the donors, we. We who work with the community, we who work for the community, working alongside the community, are the experts, right? So we know what we're talking about. We have equitable power that we bring to the table. We are not begging. We are saying we know what we're doing, this is what we've done, this is our record, our proof of concept, our record, our expertise, and we bring our knowledge to the table to address an issue that is affecting and impacting the country. So when you do that, you don't come in looking down and begging. You come in and say, this is what we do, you need to pay us. You need to pay us. And we're not talking about discounted rate or free because we're a charity. We don't do charity. None of us do, right? So again, fee for service programs, more of that, because it doesn't go to us, right? It goes to staff, it goes to programs, it goes back to the community. So this isn't for us. So when you do that, then you're not embarrassed to go up and get paid. Next. In-kind donations, I've said, and volunteer support. I will tell you the most important and most priceless amongst the three is your human capital and your human resource. Your in-kind too, not your funds. That is one of the things I think that we need to address and understand. that when you have like-minded people coming in trust, doing the work because you have a common goal, that is something that no one can take away. We were talking about that earlier with Helen, the other Helen, in our Global Nomads group, about the fact that, if we work as a collective and we're talking about creating a movement, and we build that movement and we build it in trust, and we do it because this is what we do, right? And this is why we care. Then you don't need so much money, and it's really about recruitment and retention, right? And having that pool of resources and volunteers and young people coming in to fill the gap, so that we never get too tired, because there will be someone there to step in. If we step over, none of us are invincible, and none of us are irreplaceable, right? Next. Volunteer programs. When we talk about volunteer programs, that means having to work on a proper volunteer program management program. We need that. America does it very well. Some of the other countries do it very well. Singapore's doing it okay. Indonesia, okay. Malaysia, not so. Thailand, I don't know how you do volunteers. But volunteerism isn't about CSR on volunteer day management once a year. It's a way of life. It's what your children do. It's what your students do in school. It's what we do because we care. And when you have more of that, you're going to need less money. How do you make people care about anti-trafficking and counter-trafficking? Because it affects you, right? It affects the communities because it's relevant, because it makes, it takes away people's lives, and because it matters. We definitely need more of those kind of programs where, we do the orientation and stuff, but we do it because it's a pool of human resources that go in to help build something so that we can take that stand against anti-trafficking. Next. I've just, and like I said, you're all obviously getting the slides, giving you examples of crowdfunding campaigns if you want to. I'm sure you're better than what I wrote. The stories, the storytelling, the promotional, what you need to do, the updates and engagement. I've given templates for you all to look at. Next slide. Again, how to write letters. Oh no, that's good. That's fine. That's okay. What's the process? What do you need to do? Their checklist. I've given that all for you. That will come in your slides. Next. Social enterprises, you know that. You don't need me to talk to you about this. Next. Templates. I've given you some examples, some templates. Stakeholder mapping templates. Okay. I do this as an approach. I treat fundraising and donor relationships as a detective work. I actually mind map relationships between one donor and another, who talks to who, which association do they work, are they members of, my daughter calls me a money detective, but it's not because I'm a gold digger. Yeah, I am. I'm not, it's not really. But not gold digging in that way, but yes, I look for relationships between high net worth individuals. I look at relationships within the corporate. Who is the CEO? Who's the CEO? Who's the CFO? Who's the CMO? Who's the, I look at who they do. I do research on websites. I read Forbes magazine. I read Tatler. I read every single magazine and every single newspaper. I'm old-fashioned. I sit at cafes and I figure out who's coming where, and sit and wait and build this relationship. I almost stalk people. Most people are not scared of me. Some people actually physically take steps backwards and run. But yeah, I haven't been arrested yet, but I do those things, right? So I map out, who does what in high net worth with donors. For stakeholder mapping as well. Who are the kind of partners do you want to work with in anti-trafficking? Religious members, right? Cultural members, non-traditional stakeholders, police departments, fire departments. Honestly, my latest one was the water suppliers, the Alam Flora, the ones who pick up your sanitation. I'm working with them because guess what? They work and they supply and clean up all the streets and stuff in all the streets. They know where everybody lives. Not that I would stop them, but there's so many different ways of being able to help and work with it. I'm serious, this is how bad it is. I really like my job. But again, stakeholder mapping templates, donors templates, trying to figure out who you need, what you need, who aren't you thinking of, and just writing it all down and keeping them as templates and recording them and keeping them. So I have hundreds of mind maps on every single profile, every single donor. You can think of who did I meet. I have cards. I have a whole drawer with just card names of people that I go through and I'm like, yes, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. But I'm a bit mad. Next.
Will you be sharing your mind map with us?
I have, yes, I do. You can call me and I can mind map for you. Proposal templates, I've given you some quick outlines as well, so you can look what are the kinds of things you need for sustainability reports, what do you need for monitoring and evaluation that I think we need as grassroots organizations. Budgets, I'm sorry, I will not do this, I will find a volunteer, but you can find that methodologies, all these different things that need to go in. Proposals, I've given you sort of outlines of templates. Next. Collaborative and collective ecosystems. I cannot stress enough how important it is if we're looking at transnational work for us to work as a collective, for us to work as a movement, and what that means. So, Malaysia is chairing the ASEAN Business Council next year, 2025, which means all the richest people, all the corporations are going to have to go through Malaysian business people and captains next year, which means it's going to be a lot of meetings in KL and in the region, looking at ways in which ASEAN can work together as a collective to do business. To do good business, they need to talk to us, right? Because we can point out how they can narrow the gaps, minimize the risks, and do better work. So now's your time to go do advocacy and find out, make that list of all those people and all those corporations and see how you can fit in. You want to talk about best business, networking, business, whatever it is. Now's the time, do it, because they're all working out plans on how to make more money, get that money, and get the resources to do what needs to get done, because they're trying to improve things in ASEAN. So again, looking at your multi-stakeholder initiatives that we can do as a group, your public-private partnerships, your civil society networks, your survival networks, all of this comes into play. And if next year is Malaysia, the following year is someone else in ASEAN, and it rotates. So we get to do this every year. Next. Leveraging on national and transnational meetings and forums. We say we know, we really don't. What exactly is everybody doing? We as grassroots organizations who have representatives doing all the work on trafficking, what exactly are they doing? There has to be a component in there for fundraising and resource mobilization. There needs to be someone advocating for us at the regional.
You have 15 minutes and 4 more slides.
Okay. So we need to leverage on speaking to those representatives to tell them that we need a space for us to be able to do our advocacy in our programs. And we need money, right? And we need resources. Who is that person in your country? You should have those meetings to say, look, this is what we want. You don't want to do work on shelters, or you want to do work on shelters, well, shelters cost. We need more work on transnational training mechanisms or best practices. That needs money and resources. Where is the space for it? If you can't do it, offer and volunteer to do it. There's enough of us in this room. We're all on Hoover to be able to do it together. But let's try, right? It's something new. International conference, same thing. Advocacy coalitions, regional forums, this is what we should be doing. Speaking with one voice and one vision, right? With common objectives. Next. Okay, so I've given you a whole bunch of templates as well. Public-private partnerships for anti-trafficking campaigns, whether it's forum, participation, survivor network supports. I've just given you stuff to think about. Next. I've only got 2 more slides, right?
This one and 2 more.
Okay, 2 more slides.
Well, actually only one.
Okay.
Last one's notes.
Okay. Workshop templates, just giving you an idea of how they look like. If not, you just ask Aaron, I'm just putting it here. Next. Stakeholder mapping. You should see mine. It looks like treasure maps. But yeah, again, you know, just putting templates out there for you. Next.
Notes.
That's it. The end. 15 minutes, ask me questions, please. This is the best part. Thank you. Yeah.
I just want to circle back to when you were talking about stewardship and retention
Yeah.
and invitation to visit. How do you, the ethical consideration of that, right? When you're working with survivors
Yes.
and
Okay,
protection
well,
for
yes.
beneficiaries, how do you mitigate that?
So I'll give you an example. So one of the things that our donors, for example, want to see are the children. They want to see the children at the shelters. They want to see the children. They cannot come to our shelters with our safe house because the children are in high-risk situation. You know, they're part of property, so they never go away. But we do have children in our centers that come every day. When we actually have child protection policies in place that say you cannot take pictures of individual children, you can take in group, you do have to ask for assent from the children if they're agreeable. If they say no, no. And we tell the donors up straight front, this is how we do it. If you don't like it, then sorry, that's how it works. I think
Teeny, it says we're being live streamed, so I think you better use the mic.
Oh, sorry, I'm going to be live stream. So a lot of the work is really about the child and what they agree to. It's also about what the families agree to when they register their children, knowing that there will be visitors coming to visit, etc., because that's what donors want to see. Donors want to see children, right? So we tell the parents if that's okay. Everybody has to sign a consent form. No one goes to our safe houses. Yeah, and then we sort of take pictures and we do, but we blur out their faces, etc. We show the programs, we show the works that they do. So there are different creative ways of being able to do that in terms of looking at creating the stewardship program. And you know what? The donors get postcards from kids with handwritten notes that we pass out. Yeah, so there are lots of different ways of being able to build that stewardship program, create branding, create those gifts to say thank you, yeah, and work from there. But you know, like what you have downstairs, for example, right? Those little toilet, yeah. And I love that whole voice note survival thing that we saw earlier. I think that's, and it's not pictures of the children, you know. I mean, I'm sure it's going to be all the kids, those were adults, but there are ways in which, you know, I'm looking at, I was actually texting my colleague and saying, look, can we look into something like this? But working with counsellors and human, you know, NGOs that work on mental health to see if that's a way to do art therapy. I don't know. We're going to try to see. I think what's inspiring about coming to a conference like Art is the fact that there are so many ideas and so many programs out there, and it is about best practices, but contextualizing it so it fits the needs of what we need for children in our safe houses. You know, everybody does mental support, everybody does counseling, but how do you approach it? How do you contextualize it so that it's a program to meet the needs of your children? And the fact that, you know, I met an NGO working on translations in the victims and then survivors' old language is something that we need, right? I work with children in detention, right, who are sometimes victims of trafficking, survivors, and were there for whatever policy reason. Those are the kind of programs that we are looking at, but I wouldn't have known if I didn't come to this. So I think the idea is that it's not so much that the content is new, but the approaches are new, or innovative, or different, because of contextualizing it. And keeping in mind that in your country or in your region, it may be that donors don't know about it. And that's another point for advocacy. And that's another point for you to build on that retention and stewardship program. Yeah. besides the branding and kind of profits. Any other question? Yes.
I have two.
Yeah.
How do we get a catalog of the philanthropic foundations and what they're looking to
I
fund?
don't have.
There is. I know there is in the West.
So my dream, this was like my dream like 20 years ago, was like to create, do you know those Zagat, those restaurant books that they used to have in America?
Yeah.
Where they rate you and they have stars and they say, go to this restaurant, this is what you have. That's what we need. We need a Zagat book for donors and we need a Zagat book for NGOs working on the issues to pull, and maybe this is something Eric does. There is none. I am willing to share my donor list, and I actually have it for the whole world. I actually collect, I am so weird, but I actually collect major donor names and list and sectors of what they do, so that that's what I do for a living. And you build, and you do the same with transnational corporations. You do that with regional corporations. You do that with we have nothing like that. The problem, I think, isn't so much that we're all experts, but we don't have the channels of being able to get the doors open to talk to these people. And that's one. Number two is that power play. We think we have to beg, which we don't. And number three, you know what? A lot of them don't even know what's going on. Yeah, they're too busy, which is why when you do presentations and you pitch, I'm always saying as a consultant, do a 1 minute pitch, a 3 minute pitch, a 5 minute pitch, because you're going to only get 1 minute, 3 minute, 5 minute, 10 minutes with the principals. They're too busy. So know your stuff well, get it done right, so that you can pitch really fast, really quickly, and you're succinct and to the point, and you should know what you want. So those are some of the techniques I think that we do. But yes, there is no referral system for donors, and there should be. I just did it because that's what I do. But yeah, if you talk to some of the UN agencies, they have stakeholder lists as well, donors. And there's another big pool of donors that we don't know, which is something embassies. Embassies don't have money, not a lot of money, but they have to give out grants. So, your 25,000 USD or 10,000 Swiss francs, they add up. Embassies is another pool of resources. Yeah.
Second question. I know that I have a friend in the West that took a training on proposal writing. Is there such a thing in this part of the world?
No. But if you want, and I will help you do a proposal writing class. But there are others as well who can do that. And they're free. Yes, definitely. For sure. If you want a proposal writing class, I can do one for you. You just use Zoom and we can do one. And I can get you the template, or I'll just give you whatever I have from the grassroots questions. There's WhatsApp. You know what's best about our grassroots organization? We're so quick. There's WhatsApp, there's, whatever it is, we can pick up a phone call, and we're quicker than most big corporations doing the same work.
There's a question on the Hoover app. Should a newly established grassroots organization initiate their pilot project with 2 or 3 documented activities that reflect the organization's purpose to attract the donor's attention?
Yes. You should do a pilot. I believe in pilot projects and proof of concepts. I also believe that if you're a newly established NGO, you should work with a more established NGO together, collaboratively, to sort of help you and introduce you. It's like your debutante introduction to the world of civil, So yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Any other question?
Do you have a fundraising team or do you do this all on your own?
I do this on my own. So I don't take more than 3 consulting jobs a year. So yeah.
But would you advise NGOs to have a fundraising
Yes.
team? Because,
Yes.
don't see how-
So usually fundraising and advocacy go together, simply because you need evidence. And usually the person who advocates and is your activist says it sincerely. They know what the faults are, the gaps are and stuff, and they can fundraise. It is better to get an advocate who knows the subject matter very well, who's advocating and having all the empirical data to train them to be fundraising. Fundraising isn't as difficult as everybody thinks it is. The only difference is because we're so self-conscious of the fact that we're asking for money, and we forget that we're not asking for ourselves. and we're asking for the programs, and there are certain, yes, sort of formulas to doing it, and there's certain outlines that you need to have, but those are things you can learn. What you cannot learn is the sincerity and the passion that goes in because we care. And that one money cannot buy, which is again going back to human resources. Okay, any other question? If not, we're done.
Mine was,
Yeah.
this information is amazing and overwhelming. Do you have a learning course we can join?
I've done one, yes. I've done a few actually. Yes, whenever. If you tell me when, I will do it more than happy. I would really love to build capacity because I think what I know isn't so wonderful. It's just that you don't know. And that honestly, with especially with grassroots organization, we think we're less than, and the truth is we're not. And we're never asking for ourselves. So yeah. So I have no shame at all. So with that, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. The key point is we have no shame because
It's not about
the
us.
purpose.
Yeah.
Of why we do it.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, everyone. We gather again in the main hall in just a few minutes for closing comments.
Thank you. Last week we had these.
Hello. I think there might be a button I'm supposed to t-shirt. Does anyone know about this?